home stretch here for 5.1, and basically what I want to do now is just look at some exercises, more exercises for 5.1, and especially those that are going to be most like what you'll encounter on the first section of the exam on this chapter. And so you can look at exercise set 1, where it gives us a series of statements to translate into the symbols of propositional logic. And so we see here as our number 2 problem, Arizona has a national park, but Nebraska does not. And so, Arizona has a national park. That is our short affirmative statement. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and adjust that. Arizona has a national park, but, so we have the dot, right, for but. We've seen that before. Nebraska does not. So if you're going to struggle with this one a little bit, it's just going to be on the placement of that tilde, and to not forget that there is a tilde, because there might be a temptation simply to put the letter N here. But we're going to say Nebraska does not. So Arizona has a national park, but Nebraska does not is what we have done there, and that's the correct answer for this. Now, this is all you're really asked to do here in this set of exercises. However, as you will see in 5.2, when we get to that, you're going to go beyond that here when it comes to the exam, and then again in 5.2, because what you're going to be asked to do, and this is just a little bit of a preview of that so you see what's going to be coming, is you're going to be asked to use your knowledge of the truth of these propositions, these individual propositions here, to determine the truth value for the whole statement. So we're going to be interested in whether or not this is true or false. So we begin with A, and remember that A stands for Arizona has a national park. So you're asking yourself, does Arizona actually have a national park? And you might think about, well, the Grand Canyon, right? The Grand Canyon State. And of course, the Grand Canyon is in a national park. And so, in fact, that's true. Here's where things get a little bit trickier. We need to think about what N stands for. Now, tilde N stands for Nebraska does not have a national park. But N itself, by itself, stands for Nebraska has a national park. Nebraska has a national park. Does Nebraska have a national park? This question always provokes a variety of responses. Some people feel like every state has a national park, or at least should have a national park. As it turns out, I've looked into this. As it turns out, not every state has a national park. I think every state has some form of national designation, historical site, or what have you. But not every state has a national park. Of course, here in Washington State, we're very fortunate to have 3 national parks. So, as it turns out, Nebraska is one of the unfortunate states. Nebraska does not have a national park. So N, remember, stands for Nebraska has a national park. That is false. That's why I wrote F there. Now, tilde here, of course, means not. So, it's not the case that Nebraska has a national park. We can then think about that and realize, oh yeah, well that means that Nebraska does not have a national park. That's a true statement. So finally then, we're going to bring all of this together. We're going to say Arizona has a national park, a true statement, and, or but and, Nebraska does not, another true statement. So when you have a conjunction of 2 true statements, true and true, right, the result will be a true statement. So in other words, this statement overall is a true statement. And that's what you'll be asked to realize and determine on the exam on the first set of exercises. You'll do translations. You'll use your knowledge of the truth of these individual propositions to determine if the overall statement is true or false. Now, I want to say here, this answer wouldn't quite be complete or correct, because what we always are going to need to do, and I'm going to start emphasizing this now and repeat this point later as well, is we always want to make sure whatever our final answer is, so to speak, we need to indicate that very clearly, circle it, as I've just done here. It works very nicely. As we'll see in 5.2, what we're really circling here is what's called the main operator value, and that's a concept that we'll get into when we look at 5.2, but certainly for now we can at least recognize that that's the answer for this statement. This statement is a true statement. We want to make sure we always indicate that, especially on the exam, indicate that by circling it, as I've done here, or in some way to make that clear that that is your answer. That's the main operator value here. At the same time, I also want to let you know that, yes, you might be a little worried looking at these exercises, 5.1. Sometimes you might not know the truth value of some of those individual propositions. I want to assure you that the propositions I will use on the exam for these kinds of translations will be propositions that major corporations spend many millions of dollars every year trying to get you to be aware of. So, in other words, I'm saying, do you know that Coca-Cola is a soda pop? Do you know that Butterfinger is a candy bar, right? Very simple things that you will know the truth value of, or if for whatever reason you didn't, I will be there with you at the exam, and you certainly, during the exam, could ask me, here's this claim, could you tell me the truth value of it? And I would. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to work out the problem, but certainly when it comes down to the truth value for these individual propositions, I would be glad to tell you if they're true or false. So don't lose any sleep over that. All right, and so with that, we basically have covered 5.1. Lots more exercises there to work on through Applia, and so be doing that, and then we'll cover 5.2 next time. Thank you.